Hello, and welcome to another episode of My Brain Está Spicy, the podcast where two overthinking, sometimes anxiety-ridden friends spill on their highs and lows and the craziness of navigating mental health in our daily lives.
We are your hosts, Melisa and Christy. I'm Christy. She's Melissa. And as always, we are going to be talking about the beautiful chaos of life with spicy brains and inject this safe space with as much humor and our unique sazon as we can. So get yourself comfortable, grab your favorite drink or three, because it's sure to be a super fun time.
And just so we're clear, everybody, we are not medical professionals. The views and opinions that we are going to share on our show are for informational and entertainment purposes only. We are not doctors, lawyers, or financial advisors. If you need expert advice in any way, shape, or form, please seek out the proper qualified professionals.
Seriously, go to therapy.
And with that, here we go. Welcome back for another episode of My Brain Está Spicy. Christy and I are here with you again today, and we are looking to take on an interesting topic. Another one, again, inspired from Instagram, because again, let's just be honest, we're all pretty much on social media all the time, one way or another. So not surprising that ideas keep coming to us from different Instagram topics that come across each of our profiles. And this is one that I actually wanted to tackle. The idea came from two different posts that came across my feed in like the last week or so. One was from Mel Robbins' podcast. I love what she's doing at the moment. And she did an interview with a lady by the name of Danielle Baird Jackson, who's a female friendship coach and educator. And they were touching on the complicated nature of friendships today, and how different people look at friendships. Especially one point that they touched on in the clip was around how there's research out there where somewhere around, close to 40% of adults these days don't have what that traditional definition of a best friend looks like. And their short clip conversation talks about, especially for women, but I think this tracks for everyone, how we have this notion about how, one specific friend is supposed to meet every single need. And in reality, sure, when you're a kid, that can kind of make sense because our scope of the world is a lot more limited. But as adults, we're very complex, and not one specific friendship can necessarily meet all of the complexities of each of our lives. So that's the one that kind of got my wheels turning. And then the other post that came up was a snippet from Amy Poehler's podcast where she had the actress Katherine Hahn on it. They both starred on the TV show Parks and Rec together. And they talked about the importance of friends to grow through life aspects with you. A lot of the times, or not even a lot of the times, all of us are villages and our friendships and our circles when we're growing up. It's primarily family, right? And a handful of close family friendships. But as we get older and we start figuring out who we are, we gravitate towards different circles and different individuals. And so often, especially with the polarizing nature of today's world, we get lost in this idea that our villages and our friendships need to be so grand. We have to have so many people. And in reality, having just a select few can actually be more meaningful. So I really liked both these ideas, and I brought them to Christy, and she was a little nervous in a way about the idea because her dynamic or her view towards, a village is very different from mine. We've had very different experiences. So I'm actually kind of glad, because it'll be cool to kind of see how we both compare it. So with that, I'll turn the first question over to Christy to kind of get her feel on it, which is based on where you are now, right? And what you navigated in life, what's been your experience with essentially building your village, or like what's your definition of what you think a supportive village or a support system should look like, and how do
Mm,
you feel yours is at right now?
yeah. So I feel like what it looks like versus what it is or what is realistic are two kind of different things for me. So what it looks like, um, or what it should look like in my mind, I sort of picture it as it should be like, a tight group of friends or friends and family mixture that are there for you. You have a person to call if you have this problem, or you have a person to call if you have a different problem, or like it should be, like multi-pronged and like supportive on all ends. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and the reason that Melissa mentioned that I'm nervous about it is more like because I feel like I know that cultivating a village of people who support you and having a good support system takes work, mm, takes, interestingly enough, networking. I think not in the same way. It's like a social networking as opposed to obviously like career networking. But I was
Mm-hmm.
actually talking to my sister-in-law about this weekend, about this topic. And I was like, I'm kind of not sure what I'm going to be able to contribute because like Melissa, my co-host, is so much better at like networking. And she was like, it's interesting that she's a psychologist also. But she was like, it's interesting that you use that word.
Oh, that's gotta be awesome.
She's awesome. And her name is Christy too. So she's extra awesome. But she was like, that's interesting that you use the word networking. Like I automatically connect it to career as a word, but in essence, that's exactly what you're doing is networking. It's just for a different kind of purpose in a way.
Mm-hmm.
Even though it's like ultimately the same, I feel like it comes from the same skill set
Mm-hmm.
of like being able to, I don't know, um, gain energy from being around others. And I think we all do to different extents, no matter how introverted we are. And anyway, I use that phrase to describe it. And I just have like such a non-networking brain, or like that's what I define myself under, which is probably limiting in its own way, but whatever. That's my own thing. I'm pretty introverted. The friends that I do have are very close, but they're also very like I'm a very hands-off person. Like when
Mm-hmm.
they need me, I'm there. And when I need them, they're there. But otherwise, we're not like up each other's butts kind of thing, or like very not a, like not super. And that's probably not the best thing because I don't have like a regular routine to hang out with friends, and my close friends are in from different parts of my life, so they're not connected to each other.
Mm-hmm.
They're one person from this era, another person from another era. So, and it's like, it's, you see it a lot in bachelorette parties that like, especially if you're an older ish bride, you have like the friends from college and the friends from like post grad and the friends from like work. And none of them really get along really well. And it's just such an interesting like representation of like how we evolve. Anyway, I've watched that happen over like multiple bachelorettes that I've been to, and it's just interesting to be a part of like the kind of village that evolves around us.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but for me, so my village, a lot of times it's just like one, two people, like it's not a village. And so it's almost like I feel like I'm not uh, qualified to talk about it. I know that's a horrible thing to say, but like I feel like I'm not good at it, or I'm not Like, that's not the strongest pillar on my pillars, you know? I have very strong supports in specific people that I
Mhm.
know I can go to, and I think that counts. It's just not like I don't know, it's not like a traditional or what you would think of when you think of, like, a village. So, what about you? I'm sure you're about to like, give me, like, the complete opposite answer.
Actually, no.
Ooh.
You'd be surprised. You nailed it. Yes, our personalities are different in the sense of, to use your networking word. It is very easy for me to interact with people in that sense. I've been that way since I was really little. My mom loves to tell stories of like, she would always have to keep an eye on me because I would make friends with anyone and everyone, right? Which obviously when you've got like a toddler or like a little kid, you know, you can be careful talking to strangers and this and that, right?
Yeah.
Um, but my parents at the same time cultivated a very wholesome kind of environment that I grew up in. So m my village was very much tied for the most part to the community that my parents built, within our church, which has its goods and its bads, right? But within that, they also were very involved in, and had us involved in other things. So it wasn't just like everything was church related. Um,
Mm.
we had friends from other parts of their lives that, you know, we grew up with them and their families and whatnot. But I think if anything, you reinforced what the guest that Mel Robbins had on with regards to, you know, a lot of people feel like they don't have that best friend or they don't have that key support group. Um, and we kind of have like this picturesque idea of what a support village, right? Or what your village should look like. And I think for me, as I've grown older, where I used to have the idea that you mentioned, right? Where it's you have this close knit group and you know, you're in each other's lives and you talk about this, that, and the other. Not necessarily that you're up each other's, but like you said. Um
That's complete introvert talking, like, 'cause it can go from we're chilling and we're good to, like, I wanna go home right now and I'm done. Like, my
yeah.
energy is done, I'm done.
No, I get it. I get it. But getting back to the idea where it's like, you know, you're very involved in each other. That's kind of like the quintessential of what we're kind of sold in a way to do. And I don't know if it's necessarily a media thing or just kind of how society has always built itself. But I think the reality of the situation is, and more so if you're someone that's going through life and you're learning and you're growing and you're on your own healing journey, like you're open about your mental health and whatnot, that dynamic shifts as far as what a village looks like, right? And for me, I'm not afraid of it anymore being the fact that I do have a much smaller village than I think I always anticipated that I should have, right? I can probably count, and actually most of them were all involved in my wedding party, um, on one hand, like my close people. And I agree with you. They don't necessarily all come from the same era. Where I will disagree with you a little bit is even though they're from different eras and they don't all necessarily not get along or they don't all blend, I
Mm.
think that's okay because you are different people at different points in your life. But as a group, they all still, for the most part, share common threads because they're all related to me,
Right.
right? In that aspect. So there are qualities of each of them that are present in each one of them in one way, shape, or form. They don't have to all share the same
That's
quality,
fair.
right? Um,
Yeah.
and I love the fact that I do have a smaller circle because I feel like the definition of a friend gets so generalized. And
Mhm.
in reality, for me, my friends are my chosen family. Um, so over the years, I have gotten, in a way, much more selective with who I actually call a friend and who I classify
That's
as
good.
just an acquaintance. And
Mm,
how do I interact with that person where they don't, not that they don't think that I don't think of them as a friend, but more so like if I run into somebody that I haven't seen in a really long time and I'm introducing them either to my husband or we're out with another group, that I'm not saying, "Oh, this is my friend from." I'm just saying, "Oh, we went to high school together," or, "Oh, we used to work together," or, "We met at this and this organization," right? Um, and it's not to discount who they are, it's just I give a very different definition to what a friend or chosen family is for me. Um,
that's fair.
that said, as Latinas, do you
Mm.
feel like being part of our community has influenced the way that you experience support and how you build your support community? If so, how?
So growing up, I feel like I've lived different lives almost in a way. Um, growing up, I my mom is one of three daughters.
Mhm,
Um, and my grandmother is very much like a matriarch. I've talked about her multiple times. And her mother was very much a matriarch. So I have been within my family, been surrounded by very strong female energy.
mhm,
Um, as in that village sense from a very young age. But I don't have a sister, and I'm not particularly close to my cousins in that way. I am to one of them, but she's much younger than me. So, she's going through her life and learning her lessons and stuff, and I'm there for her. But, she's not going to know, a 20-year-old is not going to know much about what a 38-year-old is going through, right? So it's kind of like different. But that was kind of one aspect, right? Of like seeing this kind of village mentality around. So this goes back to the Latina thing because on top of my mom being part of females front, like female forward family,
mhm,
my dad was one of four. So they both were part of like large ish families. So there were always people around, like when I was young, up until I moved to Miami and was kind of taken out of that environment. I was used to a lot of people at dinner and around all the time and supporting, and Thanksgivings and everything were always very like a group effort, not
mhm,
like a catered thing, but more of like, if it's a baby shower or a bridal shower, like everybody's making something and we're doing it in like a community hall. And then you mentioned actually the church thing, which that sparked like a reminder to me that when I was growing up here in Miami, my parents they're still very religious and involved in their church, but they had a huge village of parents, like other parents who had kids. This was around the year 2000, and that was like a whole jubilee thing with the
mhm.
church. And their group of friends were part of this, like, I think it was called like Renew 2000 or something.
Yeah, I
But they would
remember
get
it.
together like once a week and they would like do readings and stuff. And they would do all that. I would babysit all the children because I was always the oldest. So, but it was always a village, and it was really a village of like 50 people that like I would hang out with on
Mhm,
almost every weekend. And then as I went to college, went to grad school, turned away from religion, got older, I think that's when I lost a lot of my connection, right? Because being part of religion, a big part of it is community. That's why so many people uh, go to church and go because community is a very important part of who we are as human beings. It's why we survived as a species to begin with.
mhm,
So it makes sense why people stick with church and stick with community. Like, I totally get it. But for me, it wasn't right. But then like pulling away and losing that kind of familiarity and having to build a new definition of what family, or not family, of what support group and village look like for me
Mhm.
was like a whole different, it's a much different journey than what my parents went through with their friends, what my grandparents went through with their friends, that my grandmother's still friends with people she's been going to church with forever. Like
Mhm.
I have stepped away from that very generational like tradition of you grow with these people with the church in the center and kind of like your lives revolve around it, and you grow together and go through these phases of life together and become parents and then grandparents, and I've stepped away from that. And so now maybe that's why I feel
Mhm.
like I'm not even qualified, because I don't have one in my definition of, I don't know. And I don't know if that's a Latin thing. Maybe it's more a religious thing. I'm not sure. But it is
I
very
think it's a
strong
mix
within
of
the Latin
both.
community. Yeah.
I think it's a mix of both. So I actually relate to that a whole lot more than I thought I was going to. Um,
Oh, nice.
because I felt the same way. I mean, I still practice my faith, but I'm not as involved as I used to be. And
Mm.
and I know exactly what you mean of what that loss of community feels like as you redefine where
Mm-hmm.
you are, right? And what you look like. Or how you look at life. And I think for me, the one thing that I would kind of push against you is, why do you feel like you're not qualified? I think you're just,
Mm.
at least for me, you're describing what I think a lot of us go through, um, in
Yeah.
terms of having to figure out your people and find your people, and how when you lose
Yeah.
one sense of community, it can kind of throw you for a whirl. And I think this
Mm-hmm.
can also be broken down to an individual aspect. So another question that I had for us to kind of touch on, and I'll start with this one,
Yeah.
because when I found this question, it actually hit me really hard, because I've been through this a few times over the last couple of years, which was, have there been any friendships or family relationships that you've had to let go of because
Oh,
they weren't supportive of either something you've gone through
oh.
or how you're developing in life? So I've got two very
Oh.
specific examples.
Yes,
One is
please go ahead.
someone that grew from that community that I grew up in, right? That came from that idea of, or not that idea, just that period of my life from childhood, growing up in the
Yeah.
church and your faith and everything about that, right? Um, she's actually someone that's got double my years, right? So there was always an age
Mm.
gap, but because of my life and what I've been through in life, and also what my parents exposed me to in terms of how I developed, I've always been told I was
Mm.
older for my age, which has its good things and its bad things. Good things, that means
Mm-hmm.
I can walk into any room and I can relate to just about anything. Bad thing is, a lot of the times, because I matured so quickly in my thought process, I oftentimes, when I was younger, I had a really hard time relating to people to my own age, right? Now,
Mm.
that being said, this person and I, um, and I'll call her Maria, um, we got really close when, I would say, within a few years of me graduating college and moving back to Miami. Um, I didn't have anyone in Miami, because when I left from high school,
Mm.
where you and I went, I purposely picked the school that I was not going to see anybody from high school. By the time I left high school,
I get that.
I not because I didn't like anybody from our group. There were some from our group like you. I've talked about Lauren before and a few other girls. But for the
But
most
you wanted
part,
to move on.
I wanted to move on. I wanted to meet new people. I did try to keep certain connections when I left, but I didn't want it to hold me back, right? Um so when I first moved back to Miami as an adult, having graduated college, was working, my full-time job, so on and so forth, um, I reconnected with this person because I went through a retreat through church, which was specifically focused for, you had to already like be in your 20s. Like I think the youngest age was like 21 because it was meant for women because of the topics that they addressed. Like if you were very young, it just wouldn't resonate, right? So I went on that retreat, and then as a result, many of the women that I grew up around saw me very differently, right? Because all of a sudden they realized that you're an adult and this, that, and the other. So her and I connected. We were always very close, uh, as far as like the family community, but now we connected as women and we became very good friends. And I was always with her. She kind of took me under her wing. She introduced me to her very close friends that while they were older than me, um, I seamlessly kind of flowed in. But through the years, as I started to redefine my life in Miami, and I either reconnected with old friends or met new friends, and then with politics, that friendship really soured. And it soured to the point where I realized it was just not going to go anywhere. And it just, the friendship just fell apart because I became very vocal in how I felt about things, right? And this is back during like the 2016 election. And I'll admit, back there, I was much more immature with how I handled my political standings versus how I did in this last election, right? And I made a lot of very sweeping assessments and statements around particular specs, and they weren't taken well. And they were exacerbated, and they were thrown as attacks and insults back at me. And I basically just said, you know what, this isn't working anymore. And I cut it completely. And I didn't even say anything. I disconnected. I blocked. Everything. Because it was one of those where there was no way you were going to be able to talk about it and it was going to end well. So that was sad. So that's like one instance that I can say where that friendship ended. And then the other is actually somebody that I became very close friends with through my husband when we first started dating. She was one of the first people he ever introduced me to. So I knew she was important to him. He had been friends with her for like 15 years. And we'll call her Rachel. And Rachel and I had a fantastic connection. Like we hit it off. We were able to be funny and sarcastic, and she gave me great insight into how and why my husband is the way that he is. And I treated her with the respect that I felt she deserved, being one of my husband's closest friends and one of the first people that he felt comfortable or that he felt excited to introduce me to, right? So we developed a really good friendship. And during that time, this is back 2019, I unfortunately found myself, was it 2019, 2018? Can't remember. 2018, 2019, one of the two. Found myself unfortunately unemployed, like I am now, right? And was going through a tough time trying to find work. She helped me find a job in her company. And granted, I still got the job under my own merit, although I do realize that when you get referred by somebody, it does give you a leg up. And she had a very strong relationship with the person that was doing the hiring. So I was always very appreciative of that. However, I still walked into a very toxic environment. And within a very short period of time, I realized that. And her being my friend, I knew she was unhappy with her environment, which is the same team that I walked into, right? Her local team. But I didn't directly really work with them the same way as I worked with the national team that I was assigned to work. And that was where her contact was that helped, that I got the job with. And so when I didn't realize that apparently there was a lot of offense that was taken when I would talk to my friend about what I was experiencing with what was going on. And little by little, she would start to break away. Like, it was little things like, oh, we'd set a lunch date, and then all of a sudden she's like, oh, I can't go to lunch anymore, or I brought lunch from home. Like, okay. So I'd go to the lunchroom and I'd sit down and I'd order something in and I'd sit, right? And then I'd come back to my desk I'd come back from lunch and I'm like, oh, where is she? Oh, she decided to go out to lunch with another coworker that was sitting behind her. And then other times it would be she would make plans to have lunch with me, right? And then she just wouldn't come into the office that day. Or we'd make plans to go out
Slick.
on the weekends even with my husband, with our friends, and she would always cancel last minute. Right? And then
why agree to it? Just be like, no, I can't. I have to brush my cat. I don't know. Like,
exactly.
Don't be a bitch.
Mind you, during all of this, at that time, I was not only navigating trying to figure out a new job, it was a toxic relationship, I was also dealing with my brother going through cancer. And my parents not being in Miami, they were in California trying to take care of him, to help him and his now wife navigate the situation. Along with my husband wasn't working at the time because he decided to leave working to go back to school to take an intensive boot camp program that they do for like tech and whatnot. And he was navigating intense stress and anxiety of going through that program because it was hardcore. So I'm navigating all these things and I'm trying to connect with a friend with what I'm doing. And all of a sudden it's like straight up abandonment, not talking to me. Then COVID hits. And to end a very long story that I could just add so many layers, that friendship ended in not me ending the friendship, but Rachel deciding to end the friendship and then deciding to send me basically a full-on thesis via text as to how I've basically just been a terrible person. She doesn't know how she ever considered me a friend, how I badmouth other people that she respected and this, that, and the other, and and all this shit, and then ends it with, I don't want to talk about this. I realize that if in ending this, I lose Frankie as a friend. And I'm like, mind you, 6 months of not talking to me. We see each other once during the COVID chaos for her said birthday, right? And because she overheard conversations that I was having with other people that were there for her drive-through birthday, I guess it just like, she finally just said, oh, that's it. Like, I don't care anymore. Like, she's ungrateful and this, that, and the other, and then decided to do this. I have since then learned that this is a pattern for this said person, but nonetheless, both of those were very, very hard hits. And they force you, whenever you have breaks like that, they force you to re-examine yourself and re-examine how you classify what I had talked about before, who gets the designation of a friend. And what's amazing about life, and whether you believe in religion or just the general energy of the universe, life always finds a way to bring you what you actually need. And around that same time, the most amazing people found their way either back into my life or newly in my life as friends. And those are the people that I can see my life moving forward with to have those growth opportunities. You were one of them. You came back in around that time because that's around that time that I was navigating. I'm like, there's something wrong. I don't know how to figure things out. And little by little, like, I started to reach out to you for questions. Another girlfriend of mine, who's actually the friend that married my husband and I, Yuli, just a saint of a soul, found her way into my life through another friend that came back from high school years. And it's just, it's amazing how when you think you don't have a village, the universe has a way of reminding you and showing you, hey, wait a second, you do. It may not look the way that you thought it was supposed to look, and it may not be as many people, but that doesn't mean you don't have people. So
Mhm.
that said, because
I
I know
love
you had
that.
thank you. I know you had a very visceral reaction when I said, have you ever had friendships or relationships that had to end? So I
Yeah.
want to get your take because I want to hear where that came from.
Oh, yes. Yes, 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 yes. If you are following the lore of my life throughout these episodes, you might be able to put things together, paste them together based on what I've said. But I'll try to make it as not long as I can. So, in 6th grade, that's how far back this goes.
Okay, I'm going to
I
just
met
open the
my
book. Okay, we have opened the history books to Christy's history.
Yeah. So in 6th grade, I met a girl. We'll call her Sandy. I met Sandy. It was not my first day in school. It was at the school I had been at from 2nd grade. So I was fine, but she was new because it was 6th grade. So like junior high or whatever. And I was much like you growing up. I was the, hi, my name is Christy. You want to be my friend? Like, I was very friendly. And I did that with her. I saw that she was kind of like, I don't know where the fuck I'm supposed to go. And I was like, hey, you want to come like sit with, because it was like pairs of desks or whatever. I was like, hey, you want to come sit with me? Yeah, whatever. And we became bestest buddies. She would come over all the time, and like I would go to her house, we would carpool. Her parents were part of that 50 people village I was mentioning earlier. So we would see each other through church because my school was the same church. We went like a same parish. And our best friendship, it was never healthy. I'll admit that. I always stayed at least arm's length away because she was I'm gonna leave my judgments about her out of this. But I just, for my own safety, I kept her at arm's length because of things she would say sometimes, or, telling me that like, because we didn't go to the same high school. She went to a different high school in Miami, and then a different college and whatever. But we were in the same, we're friends. So like I would meet her friends from high school, and when they would meet me, they would be like, you're like a lot nicer than I thought you would be. So, and I was like, oh, okay.
I don't know
Little
how to
weird
take
things
that.
like that. Very weird. So my whole life kind of growing up within our friendship was like that, where I was like, I think to watch myself here a little bit. I'm not sure why. I just feel weird about it. She was a good friend. It wasn't that she wasn't. But whatever. We grew up. She gets married pretty young. She's very involved in church in a youth group. And I go off to New York for grad school. And with doing that, obviously, like my social life kind of changed. And when I came back from grad school, came back to Miami because the economy was great in 2010, I didn't have any friends, really. Like my kind of social group had like kind of gone its separate ways. So I was like, okay, maybe I'll start hanging out with her and like re-up our friendship in a way and like hang out with her friends. And that she had a huge group of friends through this church or whatever. This like, whatever, like her youth group thing. And I was like, I was already questioning religion to begin with, but I was like, you know what? I'm going to give it like good old like a true try. Like, I'm going to try.
A for
I'm gonna
effort.
try. I'm going to fucking try. And I was like 23 at this time. And I guess I just didn't realize how much New York had changed me, how much thinking for myself had changed me, living on my own had changed me. But whatever. So I started attending like youth group meetings and retreats. And this was how I want to think, was it near the 2016 election? It was near the 20s. No, it wasn't. Never mind. This was earlier. This was 4 years before.
But anyways,
Doesn't
back to
matter.
where we go.
So much like your story, I also was very vocal at that time. This was around 2012 at that time. And I was ready of the liberal mindset. I mean, I was kind of like, y'all are being super hypocritical. They would like kind of attack other members who were younger of the group that were like kind of questioning politics and like, but what this person is saying this, but they're actually, what is trickle down economics and doesn't it not work actually? And just a lot of different conversations around
Thinking
politics.
for themselves.
And that started souring things because I was obviously, and at the time I had a blog like that I would just kind of write like a live journal. I've done Zanga, I've done live journal. I'm such a millennial, but I had like a live journal that I would just kind of like vent in. And I didn't realize that certain people were reading it and they would like talk about it amongst themselves and share it with like the deacon of their parish and be like, isn't she like super problematic? To the point, no, super drama. To the point where the head of the youth group, who was a guy that was like a banker that was only like a few years older than me, so like get over yourself, called me and basically like excommunicated me from the group because I was too questioning and too I wasn't praying enough. And what did I expect? And didn't I want to have a nice husband with a nice life and nice children? I'm very educated. You're a very educated person, Christy. Why are you doing these things? And, I don't think it's a good idea for you to be around people who are questioning things. Like it was, I have it written down somewhere.
If y'all could see my face right now.
Her face is like, are you shitting me? So I turned away from religion. That whole experience with that group was like the nail in the coffin. That I was like, oh, I'm fucking done. Like, if there was a fucking sign to be done, I'm done. Like, I'm very done. And my friendship with Sandy started straining more and more and more until the whole thing with my first engagement happened. She was very invested in my engagement because I don't know. I guess as my friend was excited that I was getting married, also she kind of wanted to plan my wedding, which was because she does that on the side. And I was like, no, I don't want you to plan it. Like, I have a planner. I'm good. Like, it was a whole thing. And when that break happened, and it's a long story, like more detailed story. But the point is, it went out in silence. So while the last conversation I had with her was probably the day after I had broken things off, and she was just asking me like questions about like, oh, but like what's going on and why, and she didn't really get it. She also was part of the, mind you, this is the same, like her friends are the same friends as like that retreat group, right? So it's like the same energy, same people. And they decided to just take a story about me and about what I was doing at that time and make it something it wasn't, make me in their, version of stories, and went onto their 15 different podcasts that they have, because they also, everybody had podcasts, I guess. So at the time, they went on their podcast, started smearing my name as like, fucking the devil incarnate, like horrible person. And I have not talked to her since. And And I lost, a lot of people that I did make friends with within that group, except for one person who I love immensely. She's amazing. And that loss, I think about her all the time. I think about her a lot because I know how much pain she's in. She's a very insecure person who doesn't have a lot of real people around them.
You can't hear me, guys, but I'm snapping because I know what oh my God, I'm
she's
like,
snapping.
I know exactly what you're going to say without having to say it because I relate to it so much.
Yeah. It's you can see through when you're close with someone like that, you can see through them because you know what trauma they've been through. I know what her parents were like when she was growing up. Not great. I know what her family life was like. I know, she was jealous that I got boobs before she did. So she would talk about how she was like, I'm going to drink more milk so I get boobs. Like just weird little things like that. But like all those intimate little things, you're still that person. And I know that about you. And I know I'll probably never talk to you again, but I think about you a lot. And I do hope that you're okay. And that you find some peace within yourself because you didn't have any when I knew you and when I was friends with you. And that fucking sucks. Like you're just trying to prove something to everybody all the time. And that's kind of exhausting and that sucks. But losing a village, I feel like that loss, it felt so good when I was part of it, even though I knew I had moral differences, value differences. I was like, I'm so not in line with these people, but I so love being a part of a community. It's so addictive.
Exactly. You feel included.
Oh my God. Yeah, that feeling it's so powerful. So I get it. But not at the price of my own values and my own outlook on the world. And I'm sorry, you don't share my values? No, I'm not gonna chill with you. Like it's not no.
Yeah.
Like
so
no.
You hit something that it's like
sorry, that was a very long story.
No, it's okay. It's okay. Because in the end, you ended up hitting something that I didn't even think I was going to touch on because it just didn't come to mind. But it's so true that within friendships, there comes growth in good ways and in bad ways. And first, I'm going to say this for everyone that's listening and for both of us to also remind ourselves. Everyone's perception is their reality, right? So what we perceive to actually be what happens is not going to be the same thing as the people on the other side of this story. It's going to be different. However, that doesn't mean that there isn't still a basis of right or wrong in how certain situations unfold, right? And when you take the time and the gift to give yourself the opportunity to heal from what happens, because I agree, breakups like these and friendship breakups are still breakups. They are still a relationship, especially when they're intimate ones that you share a lot of details and pieces of your life with. And when those relationships break, not change, because there are times where sometimes some relationships need time to cool off for whatever reason.
Yeah.
But they don't go away. And eventually you pick them back up and you don't necessarily pick up like nothing ever happened. You just pick up. And your life progresses again, right? But when a friendship like that breaks, it is painful. You have to grieve it in its own right. And like yours, mine with Rachel, the second story that I mentioned, that one hurt me for a really, really long time. That one legitimately. And if somehow Rachel ever finds a way to listening to the podcast and she hears this, I'm not really ashamed of saying this. When I started therapy, legitimately, she was like the first 3 months of therapy. Not just necessarily her, but what that relationship breakup highlighted and how deeply it wounded me and how much it brought up so many areas of trauma that you don't even realize are trauma from when you're a child, right? That manifest themselves in different ways as you grow up and as you get older. Going through that was pivotal to my development as an adult
Mhm.
because I learned
Same.
so much. And again, it attracted
Same.
other people into my life that helped me heal and grow, that I agree
Yeah.
with you. I think of her often, but not the same way. And it doesn't mean that pain still doesn't exist with the situation. It does. I just view it differently, and I also understand her a lot more. Because in dealing with my own pain and my own insecurities and my own traumas, I'm able to view, whoa, there's a lot that she's dealing with. So there's a level of compassion that I'm also able to look at that situation with, right?
Yeah.
With that said, the last thing that I want to tie us into for today, I want to tie us in on a good end, which is I know our
Okay.
younger selves didn't do as much openness and talking about what we were feeling and how we dealt with life, anxiety, shifts, struggles, you name it, right? But as we've gone on our healing journeys, obviously our villages have changed to where we are much more open, both in family as well as outside of family and with people that we've created our chosen families with, right? That said, are there any key people that you can identify that have surprised you, that have shown up in a way that you never would have expected, um, that has essentially redefined how you view friendship?
Yes. So my shining example is my aunt.
Oh.
She's my mom's sister. My mom, she's the middle sister, also a psychologist. She was always really good about checking in with me when I was young. Like growing up, just like always keeping track with me, always keeping track. And when everything started in terms of like my mental health stuff, she became a pillar of support and has remained so. I can't even tell you like how much I value her, not as my aunt, as my, like, she's her own force of a village in and of herself for me. And she has redefined friend because I know what a true, and I mean, to be fair, she's my aunt, right? So she has also that blood tie. So like it's an even stronger pull to support me. And I know that like a friend who is not biologically related to me may not have the same pull or strength of pull. But it sort of raised the bar for me of like, oh, this is what like real support is. Like this is what someone who listens and someone who gives you feedback and is honest when it hurts, but you need to hear it. I mean, we even had during that time when I lost all those people and whatever, I also kind of lost her a little bit. Like it was a really, really shitty time, but we came back. Like I just needed to, I don't know, fucking blow everything up, I guess, for a second, and then I came back down to earth. I'm not sure. It was something, but yeah, that she's my like shining beacon of like what a friend, because she is, before she's my aunt, she's my best friend, like truly. So that's my example.
Yeah, I get you. I got you. So I will say this. I do have a best friend. I've had a best friend since we were freshmen in college. Our friendship is turned legal drinking age this year, right? So that is definitely a super core strong relationship for me. Um, but to the essence of the question with regards to people within your village that surprise you with showing up. So I've got two. Um, it is not a surprise that you and I do a podcast together. Okay. And I've told you this before. You definitely are one
Surprise!
person, right? You definitely are
Aw.
one person who redefined the definition of a friend. And it's why when we were telling the stories earlier of, you know, what friendship looks like and how much pressure we put on how individual friendships or groups need to look and feel a certain way. It,
Mm.
our friendship has redefined what that looks like for me. Why? When we were in high school, we always knew each other. We were kind of in the same circle, though not 100%. We were never really close, but there was
Yeah.
an essence of kindness that I think both of us always resonated within one another. Even though thinking back to high
Yeah.
school, there is something that I always guts me about my high school years, in that because I didn't openly speak out to what I was feeling or what I felt like, I always held it against, in a small way, you and a small group that we associated with. Like,
That's fair.
how did you guys not see what I was going through? Or how would you not speak up for me, knowing, without me even having to say something? Like, you guys would see something that was fucked up and you didn't say something. But when we were in high school, we didn't have that foresight, right? We didn't have that maturity to realize it was okay to stand up for other people. So I've grown from that, right? But our relationship is very interesting. This has definitely grown us closer, right? But
Oh,
we're
yeah.
not we're still not those friends where it's like we're checking in on each other every single day, or we make plans with one another, and that's okay. Like, there's a bucket that you and I fill for each other that is special in its own right. And before I even started therapy, so you hold a pivotal point for when I was realizing I don't know what to do, right? But I wasn't even using the word therapy. I was just
Right.
basically screaming into a void, and you were one of the first people to reach out in a way, right? So there's that. And then the other one that I have, and I mentioned her name earlier, which is Yuli. So she also holds a very pivotal point because, and you said this when you were describing your friends earlier, or you were describing your aunt, friends and chosen family. When there's honesty and there's love and respect within a relationship, they tell you not only the good, but they also tell you the bad. And they can also tell you when they aren't the right person to help you through whatever you're going through. And that in and of itself
That's
is
true.
support. So for me, that's the beacon that Yuli filled for me when I first basically had like my full mental breakdown year, which is back in 2022 when my brother was getting married. At the beginning of that year, I was already cracking. And at the time, Yuli was my yoga teacher. Mine and my husband's.
Oh.
She's basically the reason why we stayed sane during COVID, because we found yoga and meditation. So that helped keep us sane during,
Nice.
our quarantine years. And we were doing a class together one day. And at the end of class, she was always really good about asking you, so how did you guys like the session? Is there anything that came up for you? And I don't remember what I said, right? But I started talking. And she listened to it. My husband was sitting next to us too. And she goes something along the lines of, I know what you need, and I know what you're asking me for. But I love you enough to know I can't be the one to help you. You may not be ready for that, and that's okay. And if you have questions or, you need to talk things out, like I can still, but she goes, but you're at a point where you are wanting to work through things that need more meat in terms of guidance. For her to feel safe enough in friendship. Sorry. To say, hey, I love you enough to say I can't help you with this. Like, that's powerful too. Because
Yeah.
no one in my life was saying that, or was saying it with the true kindness that it needed to be said, to where I didn't feel judged with what was going on. It was literally said from love, right? That one moment in and of itself has redefined the last like 3 years of my life. And I don't know if I've ever told her this. So I got to tell her to listen to the episode. But yeah, those would be like, thinking now, like those, honest to God, are like the two biggest surprises for me. So thank you to you, and thank you to you, Lee. And
You too, though. Wait, I want to copy.
Okay.
I feel bad. It's true. This friendship is for sure a surprise for me too. Like, that's not fair. That was your question, and you knew what you were going to say.
No, I didn't. I did not know what I was going to say because I didn't know if we were going to get to that question.
Just FYI, before we started recording, she was like, because it's Cinco de Mayo today. And she was like, I'm going to make this episode 45 minutes. We're going to do it in 45 minutes because I'm going to go get drinks. So
yeah, that came and went.
Deal, no problem. It's an hour and an hour plus.
Dude, the margaritas are going to hit hard beautiful. After this.
Yes, girl. Enjoy it. That's beautiful, though. And I feel the same way. Like, you know, even though you were the one struggling and whatever, like, at this point, we both have, like, our days where we're just like, I think I'm going insane. Like, that's just what's happening. And we're here for each other when we need each other. And it's not, like you said, it doesn't look a specific way, or, you know, a way that would come out on a reality TV show or on, you know, some series on Netflix of like female friends and yay. But that's like okay because it works for us and it works for like where we are with our lives, and it's a beautiful thing. I'm very thankful for it. So I loved what you said. Thank you. Yay.
So with that, I wanna leave the episode with just a little call out or a recommendation based on, I guess, both of our experiences for our friends that are listening, or for anybody who may find this episode and feel like you're alone, because more people feel it than they think. One, I'll say this: if you feel like you're alone, reach out to somebody. I'll always say that, right? You can find the kind people. Yep. But the other thing that I'll say, and I'll reiterate what was mentioned earlier in the episode, village, friendship, community, family doesn't have to look like anyone else, doesn't have to look like any one picture. If your village is one person or it's two people, that's okay. You can grow from one or from two. The one caveat that I will say is if that one person is within a relationship, just remember this: whoever you are spending your life with, and I learned this the hard way through my past relationships, and I've always held on to this recommendation that a dear family friend gave me when I met my husband, actually. Your partner should complement you. They should never complete you. Because you are an individual person. You need to be complete in yourself and who you are as an individual person. And they should complement that. Not in its entirely, right? Because they need to be their own person, and there need to be differences between the two of you, because that's what builds interest. But they shouldn't complete you. And by the same token, neither should a friend. A village should not complete you. A village supports you. A village complements you. And they don't all have to get along, or they don't all have to interact. But it is important. And there's so many studies out there. There's a Netflix special that I highly recommend everybody watch. I forget what it's called. I'll list it in the show notes later, but it's focused on the blue zones all around the world, which are zones identified globally that have the oldest living beings on the planet. And the most common what's the word I'm looking for? Repetitive pattern that is found in all of these zones is this sense of community that is built amongst these areas, both within men and within women. how big community is. And it's not just within family. So often we're sold this image that community can only be family, and community is what you create it to be. So I will say that to our listeners. Find your people that you share things with, that can be honest with you, that can be firm with you when you need it. Because to just have people that are just basically always glowing you up doesn't help anybody either. You need
Not
challenge. You
helpful.
need people that can be
Yep.
your mirror in a loving way. And I hope our stories help you take a look at how you are defining support, how you are defining village in your life. And we thank you for being a part of our village, and for showing up
Yes.
and listening to our episode.
Yes.
Uh,
Yes, thank you.
We look forward to having you show up to more episodes as we keep this show going. That said, note this is the end of our first mini season. We thank you again, like we do every episode, for joining us. We are excited to come back in a few weeks, and we hope you will join us then. If you liked what you heard today and you liked our conversation, follow us on Instagram and connect with us there at My Brain Está Spicy. And remember to like, share, follow us on your favorite listening platform. Share our show with your family and your friends and your community. If you've got any hacks that you want us to talk about, or any specific topics, or you just want to chat with us, you can reach out to us on email via thespicybrainpod@gmail.com. And with that, thank you again. We hope you have a beautiful day, and may your brains be just a little bit less spicy.
And your tummies too.
Hey there. Thanks for tuning in. We appreciate you hanging out with us on this mental health ride. If you've enjoyed this episode, don't forget to like, follow, comment, and share My Brain Está Spicy with your fellow overthinkers, because the more the merrier in this Spicy Brain Club. If you're curious about any of the hacks or products we've mentioned, check out the show notes for links. We're not sponsored by any of these, though feel free to call us. We just love them so much and think you might too. Catch you next time, and until then, may your brain be just a little bit less spicy.